Right, 12 July 2024, and I am very sorry for this late broadcast. Normally we stream at around 9 o'clock, but today I was on my flight, and I must say I'm safely back in South Africa, so I'm no longer in Zambia, and this is important because obviously it has become clear to me that Zimbabwe state security agents were playing a big part in what was happening in Zambia. And myself, I'm not afraid of Zimbabwe state security agents because I spend the whole time dealing with them on a daily basis. And next month, on the 17th, I'm going to be in Zimbabwe, where I'll be covering the SADC summit. So this is something that I deal with on a daily basis. But the purpose of today's briefing or stream is for me to give you details of what happened yesterday after what you saw in public. So unfortunately, because I was in Zambia, I was not able to say much because I was obviously going to get arrested. So they threatened to arrest me if I produce details of what was happening. And that's why you see that today we do not go back to Mulungushi International Conference Center. So that was obviously under the threat of arrest. And unfortunately, what has happened is that there has been no proper coverage of the SADC MCO meetings. The media in Zambia is not able to cover events, unfortunately. And it has become clear to me that there is a serious problem with the media in Zambia. They're not able to cover events. If you go now, they've taken footage of the closing ceremony of the SADC MCO, but they were unable to produce that footage. So right now, what we wanted to do and the intention was to make sure that you guys understand what is happening, what are the resolutions reached and decisions made at MCO. That has not happened. And this is all because of Zimbabwe state security. Zimbabwe state security were heavily involved and working together with certain militarized and politicized security actors in Zambia. They were able to stop us from covering the SADC MCO meeting. So this is purely something done by Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa is a heavy influence on certain sections of the Zambian security services. And I'm going to take you through this in particular detail so that you understand what's going on and the danger that Mnangagwa poses to the Southern Africa region. Mnangagwa is very dangerous and he is destroying our country of Zimbabwe. So let me take you through what happened. So you saw that I went into Mulungushi in the morning. We knew that they were not going to allow us in, and I suspected that there was Zimbabwe state security. So we decided to go in undercover. So I went in undercover, which is they did not know who I was. And we obviously used the false pretense that we're going somewhere else. And we managed to penetrate the Mulungushi and went in, unfortunately. So when we got in, I did shoot a video, and you saw the video that I shot from inside. And well, after we got in, I continued to shoot live from inside Mulungushi. And the reason why was because this was the opening. So this was the opening of the SADC MCO meeting. So my intention was for you guys to understand what was going on. The meetings had not started. So the time that we were shooting, media was actually still inside. And at that point, I did not have my accreditation card. The reason why is because accreditation for media was being done by one media house in Zambia. And all the media were supposed to get their cards from that media house. And unfortunately, that media card house only had a few accreditation cards. And those accreditation cards had finished. So they had been finished. They were no longer available. On my departure from South Africa, we had communicated with the whole contact points of SADC in Zambia. And I don't want to mention names because I don't think it makes any difference. It doesn't bother me. I don't think the particular people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Zambia are to blame. I don't blame any of those guys, because I believe that there are two factions in the Zambian government, and I'm going to unpack what's happening and why the situation in Zambia is quite a danger. There is two factions in the security structures of Zambia, and as I'm saying, I'm going to unpack it for you, and then why that is very dangerous. So, firstly, we went in and we shot. I produced video for you, and as I was shooting, 3 agents from Zimbabwe State Security came where we were, but because I was still standing with the Zambian police, they were not able to have much influence on me or do anything. So they attempted to get me to go out with them, out of Mlungushi. So 3 state agents from Zimbabwe tried to get me to go out with them from inside Mlungushi. And lucky for me, someone called me back, because at that particular time, I was not aware that these were Zimbabwe State Security. Were trying to take me to the gate. So Zimbabwe State Security was trying to influence the Zambians to get me out of Mlungushi. So everything that you saw was being orchestrated by a number of Zimbabwe State Security agents who were inside Mlungushi. So eventually, obviously, we stopped filming. You saw it, it's all on video. And I ended up leaving Mlungushi and going to the hotel. So the hotel where they were doing accreditation is called Grand Palace Hotel. So I went to Grand Palace Hotel to get accreditation because the media cards were finished. I couldn't get media cards. So I went down to the Grand Palace and I got my accreditation, walked back to Mlungushi, and then on return, I found even more Zimbabwe State Security agents at the gate. So the Zimbabwe State Security agents were not dressed in any uniform. They were just, you could see them with their old clothes. That's how I could see them. These are the guys from Zimbabwe. So they eventually prevented me from getting in. And the way they did it is they brought some very senior Zambian officials to come to the gate. And they took away my accreditation, which I had received from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I then said, okay, I'm leaving. I'm going to shoot from 100 meters away. So they said, go 100 meters away. I went about 100 meters away. And when I went to that 100 meters away, you saw me shooting for about 40 minutes. I did a live there talking about the situation, what was going on, and why it was important for us to cover the SADC MCO meeting. And as I was going through that whole process, I also showed you that security was increasingly getting increased around the complex, around Mlungushi. And it also became clear that around me, there were multiple state agencies or state agents. And I'm not just talking here from theory, I'm going to show you which state agents were there. So there were obviously Zimbabwe state agents over there, and I showed you some of the guys who were trying to follow me down the road. And it also became clear that the Zambian government had placed an agent or agents around me. And so for that 40 minutes when I was live, around me, there were no less than 4 state agents from Zimbabwe and from Zambia. And then, obviously, as I continued to shoot, a command was sent from Zambia police head office or headquarters to get me. So a new group of guys came in a van. And these were about 6 guys. And among those 6 guys, I believe there was a Zimbabwean agent in that group. So the guys who came and took away my camera and everything, those guys were not the original guys who were on site. A new group was sent from Zambia, from Lusaka Police headquarters to pick me up. So they took me into their vehicle and drove with me to Lusaka head office or headquarters, police headquarters, where I was taken to the commissioner of Lusaka. So the commissioner of Lusaka is like the top police person there, and then the deputy police commissioner. And they went through a process of saying why they don't want us to cover issues in Zambia, from Zambia, because they are afraid of what will happen with Zimbabwe. So it was clear that they were making political statements. And obviously, the commissioner of Lusaka is like the highest police person in Lusaka, and the deputy. They came over there. So the whole room and a bunch of people, all my attempts to explain the situation were not listened to. No one wanted to listen. All they wanted to know is why we're covering there, you know, what was the purpose of the visit? Did I have accreditation? Which person did I talk to? Regardless, I had shown them everything about how I had gotten my accreditation, how my accreditation had been taken away. And eventually the decision was made that I must be taken back to the Zimbabwe delegation. So remember what I said, I must be taken back to the Zimbabwe delegation. But before I go there, let me explain to you why I said there were a number of state agencies around me. When the police came to pick me up, so the police, the new guys who came to pick me up, out of the shadows, one lady jumped out and she said she's state security of Zambia. She's an officer. So among all those people that are standing around me, and I was telling you guys that there are strange people around me. So there were state agents from Zimbabwe and from Zambia and from all over. One lady jumped out and said, I'm an officer from Zambia. So plainclothes was standing around me somewhere. She came and introduced herself to those police who had come. And they refused to listen to her. They just continued because they had orders from above. So when I went to Lusaka police headquarters, it was almost like I'm going there to clarify to the commissioners. So Commissioner like Matanga, what is happening? Why was I over there? And my belief is that the Zimbabwean guys were all over this thing. The Zimbabwe state security were all over this thing. So when I explained myself to the commissioners of Zambia, they then said I must go back to Mulungushi. So I was taken back inside Mulungushi, and I went to the Zimbabwe delegation now. So they went in to consult with the Zimbabwe delegation. So they were saying they wanted to find the head of Zimbabwe delegation to decide what to do with me, and also to decide with SADC Secretariat to decide what to do with me. And I'm busy explaining to these guys that we're providing coverage. I'm covering this event, and I've got accreditation to cover it. The good thing is that I'd followed all the steps. I went to Botswana. From Botswana, I went to Zambia. Before I went to Zambia, I contacted everyone who was involved with SADC. So my coming was well known and well articulated. So everything was well known about how I was going to come to Zambia. So I spent the next 2 hours sitting in a van, waiting for whoever was going to make the decision, And eventually, the Zimbabwean guys came, Zimbabwe intelligence came there to interrogate me. So there was this strange looking woman and another guy who I noticed were from Zimbabwe State Security. And you can clearly see the difference between the Zambian guys and the Zimbabwean guys. Very unprofessional people, the state security agents of Zimbabwe, making all sorts of allegations. They made me remove all my items from my bags and check me through. What is this thing? What is that thing? Check your phone out and all that kind of stuff. But of course, they were not in charge, so they couldn't do much. If I was in Zimbabwe, they were probably going to find a very big stick and beat the hell out of me. But anyway, because I was in Zambia, they couldn't do it. And eventually, I was sent to the gate. So they just drove me out of Mulungushi, and I went to the gate. And then when we're sitting at the gate, I asked the guys, okay, if you guys don't want me to cover this event, you must just let me go to my hotel and get my bag. Then I go back to the airport. But then the question was, someone was putting pressure on the Zambian guys. Kuti, I must be sent back to Zimbabwe. They wanted to say, Kuti, this guy is coming from Zimbabwe, he's not coming from South Africa. And the intention was to deport me back to Zimbabwe. And obviously, you know why? if you are deported to Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa is going to lock you up for days in Zimbabwe. That was the intention. And it was clear to me that they intended to make sure that I'm locked up to Zimbabwe. That was their point. But that didn't happen. I then got taken to a police station called Charleston. So let me get this station correct. Charleston Police Station. I went there. And on arrival at Charleston Police Station, I then went through a process of filling what is called a warrant and question statement. So I don't know if I still have that thing. But it's called a warrant and question statement, where you are told, Kuti, you did break a law. But unfortunately, they couldn't find what law I had broken. So now the first hour was to try to figure out what was the law that I had broken. And this is the thing here. I'm not going to show it, to post it anyway, because I promised the guys that I won't post it anyway. But this is the warranted question statement from the Zambia Charleston Police Station. And it says here, criminal trespass. And it's something to do with 306 Gap 87 of the laws of Zambia. So I'm then supposed to pay 10,000 kwacha if I violate this thing here. So it's a one question statement is, if I was to go back to that place, then they will lock me up and make sure that I pay 10,000 kwacha as a fine or something like that. But it became clear to me, like when I was thinking about it, that the purpose of this whole exercise was to make sure that I'm not there inside for the 6 hours when they were busy with whatever they were doing, so that we could not provide you guys with the necessary information that you needed to get. So I only left Charleston Police Station at almost 7 o'clock in the evening. So between 1 and 7, which is about 6 hours, I was stuck with the police and with all these people over there. And eventually I got the warranted question statement, and I was told, Kuti, I can't go back to cover the closing. So you see, the closing was very important. And if you look today on any newspaper, I don't know if SADC has eventually published, there is no communique that has been issued by SADC. So this whole SADC MCO meeting has ended without a communique. The Zambian media has not been able to cover this event. They've not produced anything on it. And now we don't know. We are now back in the shadows of not understanding what happened at the MCO meeting, which is what we're trying to prevent. SADC has meetings, but we don't know what they decide. That's why I eventually went to SADC, so that you guys can understand what's happening. So at the moment, we don't know if Mnangagwa is going to be on the agenda. We don't know if the SADC secretariat has made any decisions on SIOM. We don't know if the SADC secretariat has ordered a dialogue on Zimbabwe. And this was all made possible because the Zimbabwe Intelligence Services overpowered, I can say, the Zambian security services. A faction of them were obviously complicit with the Zimbabwe Intelligence Services who were operating there at Mulungushi. So the point I'm trying to make here is we have a serious problem with SADC. SADC as a body is not accountable to anybody. What they've done right now is a total mess. They have done an MCO meeting. And an MCO meeting is very important. It's on the calendar of SADC. And they've ended without a communique, without saying anything. What has happened? What has been discussed? And you know that we had to find these details about when the meeting was going to be held. SADC is now a useless body. And the organ, as it stands right now, it's useless to the citizens of SADC. Whatever they do is their private thing. It's got nothing to do with the citizens. And the media is not able to publish. I've looked here all around, and I'm shocked at the level of control over the Zambian media by people that you cannot even know who they are. I do not think President Hakainde Hichilema is the one who is causing this situation. I believe that there are certain elements within the Zambian security services, like police, who are still doing things the old way. It's clear to me that the Zambian security services is split in various ways between people that want to do the right things and people that don't want to do the right things, or people from the past who are still using the past methods. And this is a big danger for Zambia in terms of democracy. The democracy of Zambia can easily slide back to the past, especially if powerful forces exist within the security structures of Zambia. And this is my opinion. And my confidence in how secure I was in Zambia immediately diminished when I actually dealt with the guys that were around me. I could see the guys who are giving the orders are not giving the orders in unison. So there's one order coming from this side, there's another order coming from that side, and all these orders are just coming in different ways with one side not understanding what the other side is doing or saying. So that is basically what I figured out from my time at Zambia. I was also able to see the newspapers of Zambia are not very capable of covering news. It's terrible what I saw, and I don't know who's controlling the media in Zambia, because they were not able to provide information on what's happening at SADC MCO. It's crazy. Up to today, up to this very moment, no one has produced a full video of the SADC MCO meeting. So that now becomes a secret in the private meeting, which no one understands. And this is why I went to Zambia, to cover it so that you guys can see what was happening inside. So we were prevented here by Zimbabwe State Security from covering. And at the end, nothing has happened. No one knows. There is now a big problem, which we are going into SADC summit without knowing what has happened. What was the decision? And that's crazy. We cannot have a situation like that. It's totally unacceptable. And I'm concerned for Zambia in terms of this division within the security services. I believe that there are people who are still doing things the old way, and those people actually have a big influence on what happens in terms of issues like what happened. And my first instinct was what I told the guys: I'm going to sue the government of Zambia. But then it became clear to me that this is not a government position. I do not believe that this is a government position, what happened there. I just believe that some rogue elements within the Zambian security services were involved. And I don't believe that Zambia, the way it is structured right now, can make such an order to arrest someone who is 100 meters away from a venue, go pick him up, drive him around. No one knew. That was basically kidnapping, because there were no charges. No one knew where I was during that 6 hours. No one had been notified. When they took my stuff, there was no arrest. It was like basically a kidnapped and taken away. That is what has happened. And that's a crazy situation in Zambia. I don't think that's acceptable, but I also don't think it was ordered by the Zambian government. I don't think the Minister of Foreign Affairs was part of it. And they kept saying they don't listen to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but then they don't say who they listen to, which was crazy. I don't understand what that was all about. So just to recap, my belief is that obviously certain factions of the Zambian security services are working with Mnangagwa, which brings a new dimension to what is going to happen, given that the official position of the Zambian government is that things must be clarified in Zimbabwe. If there is such a faction within the Zambian security services, which is working with Mnangagwa, then it brings a new dimension to this whole thing. And I think that is a matter for another day, which need to be thoroughly looked at. How much influence does Mnangagwa have inside the Zambian security services? There is quite a big possibility that Mnangagwa is unnecessary influence over there. There's also a dangerous activism among the police of Zambia, especially the senior ranks. They freely make political statements, which I think is going to eventually trickle down to the lower officers. Police officers are not supposed to be making political statements. It's not their job. They're not politicians. So a police officer or a commander of the army or a commissioner has got no right to talk about what is happening at SADC. It's not his job. If I'm there to cover SADC, he's got no job. That's why you saw when I went to Botswana, no one from the Botswana police ever asked me, why am I in Botswana? Because I was specific, I was going to SADC. I never talked about anything to do with the politics of Botswana. Similar to now, I was there only to deal with the SADC issues. I went straight to the venue, which was clear. I had no other interactions with anyone else. And it was clear to me that the commissioners and guys within the security services of Zambia were working with an instruction from some hidden forces or some hidden hand. And obviously, the easy thing would have been to say, Gambakwe continue with the work that we're doing, which we're accredited to do by the right people. And today we would have an answer on what has happened at the SADC MCO. But we're now in the dark. We don't know what has happened. So I want to look at the comments and wrap this up. I've been up all along. Guys, I'm working a lot on this thing. I'm spending a lot of my time on this. Like, it's almost like a full-time job now for me. So let's see if there is any comments here so that we can cover it. We can cover the comments and I can address any questions that you've got. I want to start with, let's see if there's anyone who's commenting here. Just give me a bit of time. As you can see, I'm not in my original space. Let's see if there's anything here that we need to. Okay, am I two now? Is there two of me? Right, there's two of me now. Right, let's look at the comments. Okay, thanks Gambakwe for everything. At least you show them that the Zimbabweans are not happy at all. Yes, Zimbabweans are not happy. And what we're going to do is that tomorrow we're going to start a new process. I'm going to give you guys a new direction of what we're going to be doing. And then let's look at something interesting here. Mr. Gambakwe, continue voicing, Papa, you are the man who's doing something. Yes, we need to do something. I'm always going to be on the ground. I wanted to answer something about money. Someone was answering who paid for me to travel. Big up Gambakwe. And then SADC as a body must be disbanded. SADC is disbanded already. Let me explain to you guys what is going to happen. SADC is not going to get money from anyone, especially as long as they continue doing what they're doing. And then Michael says, Gambakwe, stop this, you're jeopardizing your life. No, I'm not jeopardizing my life. 2040, then the cheapo. You will see me in 2040. I'm going to be in Zimbabwe on the 17th of August, and you see me after that, right here where I am. And then Ngoma Amos is saying, Gambakwe must sue the Zambian government and they must apprehend the culprits. I don't want to sue the Zambian government. I don't believe President Hakainde Hichilema has anything to do with this. I don't believe, like I said to you, I believe he is actually a victim of the old system, which is still operating in Zambia. And there's an old system that is still operating in Zambia. Then Andrew says, why always alone, Gambakwe? Do you have someone to cover your back? No, I don't have to cover my back. I'm operating in Africa, a free country. I don't have to cover my back. And as I said to you, the Zambian government had assigned an agent to me without me knowing about it, who was already covering me, which was crazy. I could not believe it. I wanted to say something about funding and money. Someone asked something about money, so I'm missing that comment. Let's see where that comment about money is, because I want to address money, but I want to address it from a question. Right. Passmark, he's saying, who is funding your trips and hotels? So let's go into a lot of detail. I've had 10 flights in the past month. 10 flights. And what has happened is that on this page, we've gone to formogena.com, we created a page called formogena.com, and members of this page have been contributing money for me to travel. The amount of money that we've raised, approximately, I can say it's about 20,000 rands. Our expenses have been around 60,000 rands, which means from all the monies that we've raised, I have given some of the money to the Zimbabwe Intercessors Movement. I have paid for people to travel. Some of the people who asked me for money to travel to Zambia, I paid for them. And the money that I eventually used of my own is about 40,000 rands. And the money from the groups and people is about 20,000 rands. So in fact, most of the money that we used is coming from me, from my own resources. And this is my contribution to all the support that you guys are giving us here. There's a lot of support on Gambakwe. We get over 100,000 views a day on Gambakwe channels. And on TikTok, we're even more than that. We're getting more than those views. So we obviously have to support the Zimbabweans. And that is why I'm doing this. And I know most of you love theories. You like to hear a theory to why something is bad or why something is not right. There is no one else, guys. If I don't do this, no one else is coming. You have to support what we're doing. There's no capacity among the opposition right now. They don't have capacity. And guys like Trust, they travel to Zambia using their own resources. And they leave their homes. They run businesses. They leave those businesses and homes to go and cover events for you. So when you see me spending a month on the road, how do you think I'm going to get money to survive? Have you ever thought about that? So someone who easily talk and say, come back with this, or trust this, or whoever. The reason why most people can't do it is because they're calculating to say, if I leave my home, how am I going to make money? If right now we're to tell you to leave where you're staying, let's say you stay in the UK, and go to Zambia and spend 2 weeks, how are you going to make money when you come back? So those are the questions that people don't ask themselves. It's a big sacrifice to travel like this. And anyway, there is a particular danger, given that ZANU-PF is a diabolical blood-sucking party. So we don't take this lightly. Now, what we have to do is extremely dangerous, but we do it because it's a spiritual duty. I always say to you that to us, it's a spiritual duty, and this is the post-Mnangagwa era. It needs to be addressed. Mnangagwa is quit. He said he's not going to contest anymore. You don't want to replace Mnangagwa with the same people that you're replacing. You want to make sure that when Mnangagwa is gone, the new people that are coming are not like Mnangagwa, who's destroyed our country. So that is why I always say to you, and don't think that I'm going to sit there and watch and say, because I'm a journalist, I'm not going to talk about politics. That's crazy. That's old thinking. We're going to participate and we're going to be actively involved in what is happening. In India, you're going to see me right there when there's a SADC summit. You're going to see me over there, and no one is going to arrest me by Zimbabwe. I can almost tell you for a fact that those ones would think they can just go and arrest everyone. Someone is just walking in their own country. They will get what they deserve. You cannot do that. What these guys are doing is very dangerous and it shouldn't be allowed. However, for young Zimbabweans, if you get a call to come out and support others, you must come out and support others. Don't sit there and hide in a corner and then try to blame the people that are doing something. You can't blame someone with it. Why didn't you do it that way? Or why didn't you do it this way? It's also your duty to fix the country. If you don't like the way Pardon is fixing the country, go and fix it yourself. Stand up and go for a month, try to fix the country. Then let's see how that goes. No one person can do it. A lot of people have to be involved. And right now you've got people that are totally wrong for the country in the leadership. And that must be challenged. The neighboring countries cannot do anything. Zambia won't be able to do anything. Botswana won't be able to do anything. And Mozambique certainly won't be able to do anything. And Zambia right now, as I said to you, there are two factions in the Zambian government. One that is trying to be progressive and one that is pulling into the past. That wants to drag Zambia back to the old Zambia that was there, that you know. There are many, many people in Zambian structures right now who are itching to go back to the past, where Zambia was a laughing stock of the region. But President Accreditation Chilema is trying very hard to make this country work. And I've said to you, it's unfortunate that we have people within the Zambian security services who are actually still in the old way of thinking. Because some of these things, they should be rejected. The Zimbabwean intelligence services should not have influence in Zambia the way that they've done and the way that they were having it yesterday. Those boys, you can clearly see kuti tuvapana Zimbabwe intelligence, and it's a shame what these guys are doing in our region, destroying everything, everywhere. Terrible, and I cannot believe it. So I think let's cover everything. I'm back, and yeah, so we need to start a new process. Starting tomorrow, we're going to start a new process. We're going to rename all our groups. We're going to get more people into the groups. We're going to prepare now for the SADC summit. And we now need to see the communique that has been issued by the SADC MCO meeting. They've deliberately hid the outcome of that meeting. So we need to find it. We're going to find it. Eventually, you'll be knowing what happened at the MCO meeting. Because Zimbabwe is a problem. And Mnangagwa cannot be chairperson of SADC. I believe that is something that we need to press, and we shouldn't stop on that. So, Mkoma Wimba, thank you very much. I now understand you when you say Zambia has two factions. Yes. And where you're seeing that result is in the currency of Zambia. What has happened over the past 6 months to the Zambian kwacha is quite concerning. And whereas I'm always telling you guys that President Accreditation Chilema is trying his best, the South African rand has been appreciating, and Zambia buys most of their goods from South Africa. And when you go to Zambia, you can clearly see the impact of a strong rand on pricing. It's clear. You can see what's happening there. And this has resulted in a concerning situation in the economy of Zambia. However, what I like is that the actual structure of the economy and what President Accreditation Chilema is trying to do is actually going to work if he continues the way that he's continuing. But we have a big problem with this security faction that wants to drag people to the past. And it's easily articulated. If you're moving around in Zambia, many people articulate that position that there is a faction that wants to go back to the past, that wants to drag Zambia back to that old era where Zambia was one of the African countries. I don't want us to have Zambia back there where it was just another country. That makes no sense. Right, I think people that are supporting from afar, that have the capacity to help, but don't make me sick. Yes, guys, this needs funding. If you don't understand what I'm talking about here, everything that we're doing needs funding. I can't spend 50,000 of my own money every month trying to fix the country. We have to learn to fund ourselves. There are many people right now that have got millions, that are sitting on millions. They just want to watch us. They won't help. I've got people that now asking me stupid questions. That's all they do. Like, they never ask you, do you need help with anything? How did you pay for your flight when, you know, a flight becomes $800 when you need to leave that day? How did you pay for a hotel? What happened to the 3 days that we supposed? You know, no one ever asks those questions. They don't understand that there's a real cost involved with trying to push a struggle like this. Because media is part of the struggle. You have to understand. Media is part of the struggle. There's a big struggle in Zimbabwe, but Mnangagwa is making the struggle about Africa. He wants to extend his madness into other countries. Mnangagwa is extending his madness into Zambia right now. This is what he just did. We just failed to get the result of the SADC MCO meeting. SADC right now has had a meeting, a 2-day meeting with no communique. How crazy is that? A body like SADC, which wants to represent the whole people of this region, has had a meeting for 2 days and has not issued a communique. They've just gone away quietly without dealing with the issues. And they're going to come to Zimbabwe and do the same thing. They will come out with no result. And young Zimbabweans are going to sit there and blame someone else. So I'd like to thank you very much. And it's very late. It's very late. And I'm spending so many days having late nights and early mornings. In exactly 3 hours, I'll have to give you guys the news update. So let me take a nap and I'll be back here to give you a news update. Tomorrow we're starting a new process for the SADC Summit, and I'm counting on the support that you guys are going to give us. However, the outcome and the result is going to be dialogue, and you're going to see me at that dialogue. That's why I'm very confident. There's nothing that they can do, because they need someone to communicate the dialogue. And currently, we are the people that are going to communicate that dialogue. And they must stop right now what they're doing. Stop interfering with what I'm doing, because I'm not a political player. So they mustn't interfere with what we're doing. With their people coming to Zambia to interfere with our work. When I come to Zimbabwe, don't interfere with the stuff that I'm doing. Just leave us to do our work. And that's all I need to say. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you for support, and a good night to you all.